Hi, my name is Mr. Gurla. I'm a teacher at LSL in the Spark Academy. I'm excited to be here on behalf of ECSD Innovators to show you how to make a guitar out of a microbit. So before we begin, I'm going to show you of what our final product is going to look like. So what we're going to build is a guitar. So using our fingers, we'll be able to press on the tin foil and it's going to play sounds from our microbit. Now we are going to have to hold on to the green one as well. So we should be able to play sounds now. Now that we've seen what we're going to make, let's take a look at what material we need from the box. We need some cardboard, glue, we need the microbit itself, and there's also a cord that's attached, or that you can attach. We need some tin foil, and we need some alligator clips. So these are all the things you should be able to find in the kits. Some extra things you'll need, just a ruler, a pencil, and some scissors. All right, with that, let's get started. So first let's start by making the cardboard cutout. It should be about 15 centimeters long. So get your ruler, and we can mark out 15 centimeters from the edge. I'm going to use this, looks like a nicer edge here. And mark an edge out there. All right, and right from the edge. It should be at least this big. We want to make sure other people have enough cardboard to do their project as well. So make sure you leave some for them. Next, about 4 centimeters is probably enough width-wise. So I'll go 4 centimeters here. And then over on this side, about 4 centimeters. Doesn't have to be perfect. Close is good enough. All right, so line up both edges. There we go. Now you may want to stop the video at certain points to give yourself a second to catch up. I'm going to start cutting this out. Again, doesn't have to be perfect, just close. Just enough so that you can actually tap your fingers on it, like you saw in the video before. All right, there we go. So I have a 4 centimeter by 15 centimeter piece of cardboard. Next, we're going to get some tin foil. Now this again doesn't have to be perfect. We just want to make sure we conserve enough for other people to use as well. The max I could ever need is about the width of my cardboard. In this case, this is actually pretty close. And then I need only maybe 3 centimeters. I don't actually need to cover the full area, and I definitely don't want it to wrap around, meaning going on the back side of this cardboard. So let's just measure-ish about 3 centimeters. Okay, that's about where this cut is for me. And I'm just going to cut straight across from there. All right. So there we go. Okay, so now I want to have 3 buttons. Plus I'm going to have a ground button, and I'll explain what we need the ground for as we get further along. So I'm going to cut these into smaller pieces. Maybe try to straighten out that one last cut there, especially off the sharp edge of the tin foil. All right, that's probably pretty good. Again, it doesn't have to be exact. That's about 2 centimeters. I'll make them about the same. Again, if you need to stop the video, you can. And there's the 4th one. All right, so let's just see how that looks. Now, I like to put the shiny side up. I don't think it really matters too much, but let's just space these apart. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. This ruler was just that cardboard. There we go. Looks pretty good to me. All right, next I need to do some gluing. Now I do recommend having some paper or something behind it so you're not getting glue all over the table. So I'm going to glue the dull side of the tin foil. Right. Whoa, try not to crinkle it too much. It's going to make it a lot harder as mine goes flying around. There we go. Now do make sure it is smoothly, it's not going over on either side. And we'll just lie that flat. And there we go, we've got our first button. Again, doesn't have to fill the whole area up, not necessary. All right, let's just do that a couple more times. So this tin foil is going to help conduct from our body, complete the wire. It's also going to make your hands very sticky. There we go. Now how far apart these are, again, doesn't really matter. Just enough space to give your fingers somewhere that they shouldn't be hitting each other. So for me, that's about good. All right, 2 more. All right, I've got it. Make sure you're done before you move on to the rest of the video. Because next we need to put the alligator clips on. Now color doesn't really matter too much. What matters more is just that there's a good contact between the alligator clip and the actual tin foil. I do have a preference to put my ground to the green side. So here we go. I'm just going to put them on this side. I kind of lined up some more of the tin foil on this side. So we'll just open up the alligator clips. There's just a little tab inside there. And hopefully, there we go. So as long as it's attached, you're good. And from there, color doesn't really matter. Not that the green did either. That was just my preference. So there's my yellow. And my red. And my white. Now you'll know if you've got a good contact or not once you start trying to make this work as the full guitar. So again, we should have 1 alligator clip on each piece of tin foil. Hopefully because of the rubber, it shouldn't be touching anything else. And we're now good to connect this to our microbit. So on our microbit, we have these buttons which you can program to do other things. But we're going to mostly be worried about these little 0, 1, 2, and then the ground. We're not going to use the 3 volt. We're not sending out power to a light or something. We just want to know if we've touched these areas. So the microbit has it just on its own, where if you touch 0, 1, or 2, using your bodies as a ground to finish a circuit, it will know and conduct some electricity. And we can take advantage of that. On the back, we have some speakers. So our speaker is right there. And we've got the processor. We've got a reset button. You can actually get batteries for these as well. There probably isn't one with the kit you have. And then this is to hook into the computer. So let's start hooking this up. First, we're going to go into the ground. So we're going to take our green one that we did. And just make sure it's right over this wider part, not the little clips, but the wider part. Snap it on there. And there we go. We're going to do the same thing with each other one. I mean, for me, I think it makes the most sense to go in order. So we're going to say yellow is 2. We can just snap that one on there as well. Now for me, this is a little backwards. There we go. And they slide around. That's okay. You can always adjust them afterwards. I have red as my 1. And then white as my 0. Now if you do put them in a different order, it doesn't really matter. You'll just notice the sounds don't necessarily match the order maybe you expect them to. All right, and then 0. There we go. So they all go in a connection from the microbit to one of these tin foils. And really what this is just doing is it's extending this spot where I could touch. Well, it's transferring it through the wire. And now the tin foil is conducting from my hand to see if there is some connection there. All right, let's start coding this. So the website we want to use is this Microsoft Microbit. This is the starting page that you would get to. If we go into Google, you can just type in Microbit Microsoft, and it'll be the very first one that shows up. So that makes it a little pretty easy. So going back here, this is the page. As soon as you click on this link, it will directly bring you to this page. From here, we can say new project. You can see I did a guitar already once, and we can name this whatever we want. So I'll say guitar, microbit. You can call it whatever you want, and I'll hit create. Now there are some different code options. We're going to be using the blocks for today, but you can use Python or JavaScript depending on your ability. So I'll hit create. Now as soon as you get inside of here, it does actually show the microbit here. It should match what we have. You can see the 0, 1, 2 are there, as well as the ground. We do have the A and B buttons as well. And we have this start block and this forever block. Now we want our guitar to work forever. I have nothing that's going to happen for me on the start, at least not at the start of this. So for the forever block, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. There we go. Now there is always more than one way to do something. I'm going to choose to do everything using if statements so that my guitar will work with as little lag as possible. And when I mean lag, I mean the time it takes for me to touch the tinfoil to actually making some music. So we're going to go into logic, and it's actually the very first one is if. And you're just going to drag this in. If you've used Scratch, it's very similar. I'll just zoom out a little bit so you can see around our microbit. So it says if true, then do something. Something is inside of here. Well, we have true or false here. We need to give it the question. In our case, the question is, are we touching this 0 pin? And you can see it actually highlights. You can actually test this out on here. So I'm going to go to input. And if I scroll down, you can see that we have this on pin 0 press. Now that is this 0 pin. The one problem I find with using these is there actually is some lag to it. So I'm not going to. We just scroll down a little further. Here we go. We have pin 0. So I'll do that one more time. It was a bit quick. Here we go. See this pin P0 is pressed. So I'm going to grab that. And if I hover over the true, you can see the red line says, hey, this can go here. Yep, that's what I want. So my question now is if pin 0 is pressed, then do something. Well, do what? All right, so we're going to go to music. And down in music, we have actually quite a few options here, but I'm going to play tone. I'm going to drag that in there. And we have play tone middle C for 1 beat. And you'll see it actually changes over here to match what we kind of have. Now we can change what note we're playing. So I'm going to just start with middle C. We can also change the beat. So we can do quarter beats. We can do eighth beats. And you can play around and see what you like. You can also try it out over here. So if I just hit the stop button here, hit play and reset it. If I hit the O, it will actually play the sound. All right, now I want this to go to my microbit to see if it's working. Let's go and let's try it out. So we need to download it, but first we need to connect our microbit to our computer. So we're going to go and use that cord that we have already in there. So this cord, and you have to be a little bit careful. This is not like a USB-C where it can go both ways. There is only one direction. So just be very cautious if it's not going nicely. It's probably flipped around the wrong way. This is one of the unfortunate things about this style of cable, but it should slide in fairly easily. And then the USB should just go into your computer. Now, as soon as you plug it in, you should see a red light turn on. So you can see over here, we got a red light, got some yellow light as well. And hopefully this will work then. So if we go back to coding and we click on the download button, we're just going to ask a question here. Your code is being downloaded as a hex file, okay? We're not too concerned about this file format. You can drag this file to your microbit. Now this is probably the harder way to do it. So they have this new pair with it. Yes, I want to pair. And so we can click on pair now. So first, make sure your microbit is connected. Sure, it is. That's what we did first. Hit next. Now it gives us a warning or just kind of some help. There's two things it could say. Either select BBC microbit or DAP link. Either of those things are good. So let's go next. All right, so for mine, can't quite see the top of it. It wants to connect with BBC microbit. Sure. Click on it, connect, and we should be good to go. So now I can hit done. All right, now that it's downloaded, we should be able to go back to our microbit. So I'll leave both screens up here. So you got to hold down on the green, and then you should be able to tap on the white. Now I did turn up this volume a little bit, so hopefully you can hear that. Now you'll notice kind of that pause in the beat. If you turn that down to 4, there'll be less of those pauses, but it'll play longer. Or if you go to like quarter, it'll be shorter between it's finishing that note. Now what's really happening here is also important. So let's just flip back. When I touch this ground, what this is really doing here is it's looking for a complete circuit. So electricity needs to be able to flow in a circle all the way through, and then in our case, through the microbit. So let's just pretend we're going to start here. You'll see nothing happens. When I touch here, electricity can now flow in a very small amount, right? A very, very small amount. Could flow through here into the microbit, and then out of the microbit through the ground wire, but then to where it's stuck. The cardboard is an insulator, can't get through it. So it needs to somehow get back into ground, or to jump from here to here would also be fine as well. And you can see my hands being there does the same thing. So we just need to complete this full circuit for us. And to do that, it's just using you as a person to do that. So it's going through the microbit, going into it through the white, coming out the green, going around, and then tin foil lets us connect ourselves. All right, so that's just one of them though. We can actually do more than one note. So I'm just going to not shift it around like that, but instead shift up my code. Now I will cover a little bit, but I think it's worth it to be able to see the microbit at the same time. So I've got a couple options of how I can do this. I could click this plus button here, and I could use this idea here. What this is saying, okay, well, let's check this if statement first. If this is true, do this, and don't even bother checking the rest of them, which is kind of what we want, I think. But we could also hit the minus signs and use a second if statement. So we could pull that second one in there and just repeat it and go if, and we're going to go down to pin, and we can drag that in here, and then we can go pin 1. And then we could play a tone, a different tone. The problem here is, let's just imagine I was touching 2 of them. So let's just say I was touching the white and the red at the same time, which is pin 0 and pin 1. Well, which one is going to play? They're not going to play simultaneously. So which one is going to play might be a bit of a guessing game. Maybe the time just so, it should be this one, but who knows? Maybe this one finishes, because this will play until it finishes, and then it somehow magically does this one. I don't know. Also though, if we're hitting the C one, do we really want to check the next one? Probably not. And maybe it seems ridiculous, like, oh, who cares? It's just it's another question. But you have to imagine there's thousands of questions like this, thousands of these if statements. It's going to start mattering. We're going to use this idea of if else. And you know what? We have 3 of them. So we're going to do 3 different spots. So basically, check this first, check this second. Okay, what are we going to put there? Well, we need this pin 1 that we had over there. So you can actually grab it, again, drag it here. And now we can delete this. All right, so if pin 1 is pressed, do something. Well, let's play a different tone. So grab this tone. Instead of middle C, let's go to middle E. Sounds slightly different. Now, what if we are hitting either of these buttons? That's what this else statement is saying. Well, what if neither of those are true? Well, I just don't want to do anything at all. So I can hit the minus sign, and it'll get rid of that. Now, if I want to test these out, we can hit download. And let's see. So we've got white one's still working, red one's working now, yellow one's not, because that is pin 2. All right, looks pretty good to me. I'm just going to drag this back down. There we go. Okay, so we're just going to add another plus. And actually, I'll add a second plus there. Now, we can make this a little faster. You can see if I hover, it goes white. I can just right-click, duplicate. And now I can put that in there. And now I want pin 2. All right, I can do the same thing for these red ones. Right click, duplicate. Oh, it's kind of hiding down here. Drag that in there. Pick a different note. Here, let's try high F. And that sound looks pretty good to me. And we'll go minus. Now at this point, this will probably work. The last thing I want to show you is that we could actually have it so if I'm pressing 2 different buttons, or that it'll do something different as well. And it could play more than one tone as well. So I'm just going to hit plus here, plus again to get this if else. But I'm going to now make it so I'm hitting 2 pins at the same time. All right, so I'm going to go into logic. There we go. Going down. Here we go, the end. So I'm going to throw that in there. Now I'm going to say if I'm hitting pin 0 and pin 1. I can see pin 1 better actually. So let's duplicate pin 1. There we go, drop that in there. And then duplicate pin 2. There we go. So what we've done here is now we're asking two questions. Is pin 1 pressed and pin 2? So now if I'm hitting P1 and P2, I want it to do something a little different. So let's go to music. And we could try playing a melody. And so there we go, we can play around with some different things it can do. And it will play these notes as we go through. So let's just try that out. I'll add a few more. I am going to minus this else statement off. So melody is just giving us some extra access to different notes. We can change how fast it's going. So let's download this. And now let's try it out. So if I'm holding on to the green, so I got white, red, white. Ooh, that is not a fun sound. Now, if I hit pin 1 and 2, so these are pin 1 and 2, it's not working. It's supposed to play that melody that we had over here, and that's why I didn't flip back. I knew it wasn't going to work. Here's the problem. If pin 1 is pressed, well, we already asked about pin 1 way up here. If pin 1 is pressed, it actually doesn't ask the rest of these questions. It doesn't bother asking these questions. It's to save processing power. So in fact, this double press, we actually probably want that either first or at least before either of these other two things would happen. So I don't really care too much about this if P0 is pressed, because that doesn't have P0 in either of these. However, this P1 really does matter. So I'm going to take it out. We want to ask this end first to check if they're both being pressed first. That means I also have to change this middle E part. So I'm going to drag this melody in there. And not to be too confusing, kind of hiding some of these things. This is our P1. It's going to go at the end and middle E. All right, let's download this, see that it works. So everything else should still work. And now, and there we go. We have our full melody. I hope you enjoyed making the guitar with me. There's lots of extensions you can do, including more notes based on multiple key presses or other melodies. That's all for me. Enjoy the rest of your day.